What's up, guys? Welcome back. I am here with Ashley Rogers for part 3 of the SharePoint HTTP Connector series. By now, you know Ashley. She is rad. Her teaching style is amazing, and I am so glad that you are back with us to show us some more about this cool connector that I am learning a ton about from you.
Sweet. I'm so glad to be back.
Awesome. So today, what are we talking about?
Today we're doing HTTP patch. So we've gone through get and post, and now we're ready to update some items in SharePoint with patch.
Okay, and so patch is that it's updating items. So
right.
Getting is I get stuff, posting is I put stuff somewhere, patch is now I can update that stuff that I put somewhere.
Exactly. Yep.
Sweet. Okay, cool. I'm with you. Let's do it.
All right. So as you guys might remember from the last few videos, my name is Ashley Rogers. I'm a senior SharePoint consultant and developer. I do all the cool fun stuff like speaking and blogging. Here's my info. My handle has changed. I'm now at Ash Rogers.
Thanks for calling that out.
Yeah. So go ahead. If you haven't followed me yet, follow me at my new handle there. And then there's my blog here, spinbetween.blogspot.com.
Awesome.
All right, cool. So let's do a quick overview of what we've done. So for these videos, if you've been following along, our data source has been SharePoint. So again, we obviously need that if we're doing the HTTP to SharePoint action. It's specific to SharePoint. It's the only non-premium HTTP connector that's available in Power Automate. So super good to start using SharePoint if you're doing things with HTTP. So far, we've done the verbs get, post, and those two, as John had called out, that's really getting items is get. Post is creating those items in SharePoint. And now we're doing patch so that we can actually do some fun, interesting things to update the items that we're creating or that you've already got.
Cool.
Yeah, and something to always remember is that really what we're doing here is talking to SharePoint's RESTful endpoint. So this is just a URL. So if you've gone through and you've watched the other videos, you know kind of what that URL looks like. You know the concept that it's something that we're talking to. It's an API that's available to us. And we're just really trying to simplify that. So it's really about the URL, but it is a RESTful endpoint.
Okay.
Cool. All right, so patch method. Let's just jump in. Like I said, it updates items. So anything that exists currently, if you're going to create it, you're going to use the post method, but here it's going to be an update. And we're going to call out specific metadata for an item. Again, if you've watched the videos before, you've seen us do that. The pattern is very similar. A couple of gotchas that we'll go over, but it's really whatever you send through your HTTP action, the metadata that you actually tell SharePoint to change, that's what's going to change.
Okay.
And instead of just the body field, we're going to make use of some headers as well. So an extra header in there that we can go over, talking about some e-tags in there, but then the body field, a little bit different as well. But again, stuff that you might be familiar with that you've seen before from the other videos.
Awesome.
So, okay, couple of things that we want to review. So we're going to do a little review and then introduce a couple of new concepts. But again, we're just going to move through it pretty easy. So our URL structure that we've gone over before, remember that we are talking to SharePoint. So we've got our tenant site address here. Mm-hmm. We want to reference the API. So we've got _API /web/. And this doesn't ever change with whatever tenant you're talking to. This is not going to change no matter what HTTP verb you're using. And then, of course, we have our lists get by title, and then the list name goes in here in single quotes /items to bring back all the items. So this is something you've seen before. This is something we've talked about before. Just a quick refresher.
I love that you go over this every time. I appreciate this because it's a great refresher for me as well, who is not, in all honesty, I don't work in HTTP a whole lot. And so it's a great thing for me to kind of just keep that fresh in my head. So I appreciate that.
Sure, absolutely. I'm a big fan of making sure that the concepts, you look back at them, and that way it sticks. And the more you hear it, the more you'll be able to bring it to mind on your own.
Totally.
Yeah, so our new concepts, building on the URL, it really is very simple. What we're talking about here is an item ID, and we're just adding that to the end of our URL. So you'll see that this is exactly the same as the last slide. Our lists get by title, list name, items, and then in parens, it's just the item ID. So we'll go through this. I'll show you inside the SharePoint list that I've been using, but really you can grab that using a get from Power Automate, or you can grab that just looking at the SharePoint list if you're doing some demo data and teaching yourself. But this is the SharePoint list item. That's the ID that you want to do. So this is what we're specifying in order to update. And you can use this with just making a single update to an item, or you can replace this with the ID, the dynamic content that comes back in Power Automate. I'm going to show you how to do that, but it's very flexible. So nice. You can do, bulk updates as well as single item updates.
That's handy. Then then it would be almost pointless to build automation, right? If we couldn't do it dynamically. Yeah.
Exactly. All right, so let's do one more concept review here. So last video, I introduced the concept of these key value pairs for the metadata. So you'll remember that all we're specifying inside the curly braces is the field name, and that's going to be in double quotes, colon, and then the field value. So for a string value, the field value is going to also be between double quotes. If it's a numeric value, we went over that that's not going to have quotes around it. And then for some compound or complex fields that we're updating, like when we did the people picker, there's a couple of different ways that you can do that, but the concept is super similar. So it's really just all about finding that field name and then supplying the field value that you want.
Cool.
All right, so the big guy. This looks a little scary. This is really this is really where the work is done. So the URL part, not so difficult. We know we're talking to one list item with the ID. You get the key value pair situation. Then when you come and you look at this, it's a little crazy. But if you're used to looking at JSON, maybe some of you guys have dug into the JSON that comes back from a get method, or maybe you're doing the parse JSON, you're splatting the schema into that action. You'll be familiar with sort of this pattern here. So let me break this down for you, because this is what's going to go into the body field when we're doing a patch method. So what we're going to do is call out this piece here, which is the standard type of format that's not going to change. So you've got your curly braces, and then we're just doing a call out to metadata. So what we're doing is we're supplying SharePoint's endpoint with this thing that's saying, I want to update the metadata on this. So dig into the item, bring me back the metadata, and then here's what I'm going to do to update it. So we're just doing a call out to the metadata. This part's never going to change. And then this here, this type sp.data.flow testing list item, this is your list item type definition. So it looks a little crazy, and it may be a little difficult at first to understand where am I getting this, but if we break it down, what I'm doing is I'm telling this that I'm talking to SharePoint, and I'm talking specifically to the flow testing list. So if you are with me with the other videos, you know that my list is called flow testing, and that's what we're showing here, is that it's flow testing and then list item is at the end, indicating that it's a list item, obviously. So I'll show you where to find that, because sometimes if you've got spaces in your list name, it's going to look a little bit different on the back end, and you might want to do a call out to SharePoint to understand what that is. So I'll show you where that is, but this whole piece doesn't ever change, right? So metadata, we're doing a type, and they're supplying the flow testing list item, whatever that list item type definition is.
Yep.
And then you get into the work. So this is the part that you probably are familiar with from the post. We're doing the metadata here. So in this example, all I'm doing is I'm saying update the color column to yellow. So field name, field value, it's a key value pair, super simple. So if you just kind of put this into chunks, this part is standard, this top part, and then the second part is where you supply your metadata. So if you want to do more than one column, we're going to put a comma after the first one and then supply the rest of the values.
Yeah, and so this, if you watch the previous videos, this will at least feel familiar. You might not understand exactly yet how this will play out, but you should begin to at least understand, yeah, I remember that list with all those things. It had red and blue. We're going to change one of those to yellow by doing this manual way. And so if JSON's not familiar to you, this is the language that's behind every single flow. Every action you put in, all of that's happening there is this language is there telling one of these APIs this exact stuff. And it just isn't shown to you, the user. So if you're still not understanding quite yet, stick with us. We're going to jump into the demo. It's definitely going to make sense and come together for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Plenty of stuff to show. So as always, let's do this.
Let's do it.
All right.
I feel like I need music, like let's do this. Some beat to hit.
Yeah, I was going to say you need like the beat to drop.
Yes, exactly.
We'll do that next time. All right, so this is the flow testing list that you'll be familiar with if you've been going through this with us. So you'll recognize this name and everything, and we're talking about the IDs of the SharePoint list items. This is where I'm getting this. So the ID column is built into SharePoint. When I do a post, it automatically assigns the next number ID to that item, so you don't have to manage it. So when we're talking about doing a patch and trying to get that information, it's here in your list if you expose the ID, or you can grab it from Power Automate if you're doing a get, and then you can see the ID that comes back. So that's all we're talking about when we're going to update an item. So let's go ahead and jump into the simple demo. So what I'm going to do here is I've got my manually triggered flow, same type of pattern that we've been following, just something simple to hit SharePoint with a request.
Yep.
And you can see that we've got our site address here, and then we've got our method specified as patch. So again, if we come in here, it's everything that we've been talking about, and we're just moving through the lines here, and we're just going to do patch. And then in the URI section, it's that standard piece again, the API web lists, get by title. You can see that my flow testing list is specified there. And then in the parens at the end, I'm going to talk about the item with the ID of number 12. So let's go back here real quick and look here. Yep, so I've got an item that has an ID of 12. It's called My New Item 2. The color is yellow, and then I've put the people picker as myself there, Ashley. So I've got data there. It's an item that exists, so we're going to go ahead and hit that. So let's go down and look at the headers. So you'll be familiar with this content type header. Again, if you've done the get and the post, and we've got, we're specifying that it's JSON and that we're specifying that the OData that's coming back is verbose. I have mentioned before, and this is just sort of a level 2 type of thing. I've mentioned before that when you're doing these, there is the concept of saying OData equals no metadata. If you've heard that, that's what you want in production. But for this case, we're going to bring it back as verbose so that we can actually talk to the metadata. So it's just part of the header that needs to come back in order for us to do this patch.
Okay.
So the next header that we need to have is this if-match. So this concept is called an e-tag. So what we're trying to do is specify the exact resource that we need to talk to. So when you do a request to SharePoint in a regular HTTP call, if you're doing this in code or something like that, you're going to want to specify the e-tag that comes back. For our purposes, we're going to put this star in here that basically says it's okay, as long as it matches something that comes back that has this item ID of 12, just give it back to us. We don't need to have a GUID to specify what that actual e-tag is. So, for this case, we're just going to say if match anything from this item ID. Cool. So, but this is definitely a necessary header to put in.
And
you're
so
going to get an error.
Represents that anything.
Right, that's exactly right. So the star is anything. Yeah, so if you don't put this in as a header, you are going to get an error on your flow.
Okay.
Cool. So the body here is exactly what I showed in the slides there. We've got the metadata. We've specified what type of list item that is. And because we know that this is already the color yellow, let's go ahead and update it to green.
Ah, see, I was gonna mention, like, I think that's already yellow.
Hey, you can tell I might have run this demo before.
Maybe one time, maybe.
Yeah. So let's do the double save again, so that we feel good about
always double save and
right?
float, right?
That's right. All right, so let's go ahead and run this. So we've got everything specified. We've got our headers. We've got our metadata. Nothing seems out of sorts. So let's go ahead and test. Run flow. Cool. All right, let's go over to this here. And you can see that it just automatically updated to green. I didn't even have to do a refresh. I think I mentioned this before, that I love how SharePoint Online does that. It just does the automatic callback for the data. So we've just updated that to green. Okay. So I want to pick out another one to build on this. Okay. So let's do the item with ID number 2, so you can see that I don't have a people picker specified. So you can see that there's nothing in here for the person, and we're going to look at that one. So let's go ahead and edit this.
Okay.
Got the one. Okay, and again, you might be familiar with this because I've done this before in the post, but we just want to bring this in and show you how we can do all of it. So I'm going to go ahead and paste in some data here. All right, so I'm going to specify that the color is going to be yellow. Yep, it's green, so we want to make it yellow. And then I've just put a comma after this where this is the people picker single ID. So again, if you've watched the last video, you'll know that for a complex field like a people picker, we can just call out that sort of internal field, the ID, to specify a person. So I know that my number in the system is 6, so I'm going to update that to me. I don't have it in quotes because it's a numeric value. And then I'm just going to update the title to my patched item. So let's go ahead and save this. Okay. And then as always, we are going to cross our fingers that the demo gods are with us.
They are.
There we go. And they are.
You made your necessary sacrifices today.
Yes. So there we go. So number 2 is now updated the title with my patched item. The color is now yellow, and it's put my name in there in the people picker. So
I love it.
Yeah, so there we go. And I want to call out that the reason I wanted to update the title in this manner is sometimes you might think, okay, well, does the order of the columns matter? Can I update that title? Because sometimes that title, it's fixed in your mind that it's something that you have to have as the same. You can update the title this way, and it does not matter the order in which you put these.
Awesome. You know what I'd love to show real quick, too? I think we have another minute. Do me a favor and add in a input to that button, and then let's just show how we could pass a dynamic value into that body field there.
Yeah, sure. So what do we want to do here? So we'll put in, we'll say color, and then let's see. Do you want to do anything else there?
No, I think color's fine.
Cool. And then we'll do right here color coming from that.
And so that's it. Like literally, there it is, right? So as simple as that. Now she created a button that when someone presses it, it'll ask, like, what would you like to change this to? And then it'll dynamically go ahead and update that list the same way as if she hard coded it in. And so the way I want you all to think about this is, imagine now if you have a form in SharePoint and Power Apps and Microsoft Forms, if you have a data source that's consuming from an email source or whatever it might be, you can pass these dynamic values in to begin to update these lists. And with this HTTP access point, what's nice about it is you can actually get really, really, really granular and add a lot of metadata, a lot of the richness that a lot of people want that the normal connector just unfortunately can't offer you. And so this is a first step into looking how to patch all this. But I think it's a great look at how this methodology works, a little look at the JSON, and then like a quick look at how we can throw in something dynamic so that your your mind can get focused on what are the possibilities.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the example of the form. You took that right out of my mind as you were talking there. That's definitely something I've seen people ask for before, right? They want to have a request form. They want people to be abstracted away from the SharePoint list and use something user-friendly. So I love that. It's a great example.
Awesome. Awesome. Man, Ashley, I really appreciate you coming and giving us another quick and dirty lesson on this HTTP connector. I love how you're just so to the point and get everything out. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. And I think we're going to have you back. We have a couple more parts to do, right?
That's right. Yep. So
Awesome.
Look forward to the next one.
Awesome. All right, guys, you know what to do. Click like, click subscribe, go down to the description and go and follow Ashley. All right, that's it from me. Much love. See you in the next one.
Bye, guys.